The day humans left Earth was not announced with fireworks or speeches. There were no grand ceremonies that the rest of the galaxy could see. It was quiet, deliberate, almost like the planet itself held its breath. People moved with purpose, not panic. The departure had been planned for decades, even centuries in secret. The ships, massive beyond imagination, stood on the edges of deserts, oceans, and hidden valleys, places where no one outside humanity could witness them. Each one was a marvel, a combination of engineering, biology, and something that even the most advanced alien races might have called magic. But it was not magic. It was human determination, ingenuity, and the desire to survive and thrive in a universe that had often underestimated them. For centuries, humans had watched the stars. They had observed distant systems, listened to transmissions from far away, civilizations, and learned in silence. They had grown quietly powerful, not by dominating others, but by preparing for a day when the galaxy would be theirs to explore. They built ships that could carry entire cities. They developed engines that could move faster than anything anyone had imagined. Every detail was designed to protect humanity, to give them a chance to exist beyond the fragile cradle of their home world. And on this day, they finally set their plans in motion. The Galactic Council, the ruling body of countless species, had been aware of humanity, but only vaguely. They knew Earth existed. They knew humans were clever, resourceful, and unpredictable. But in their arrogance, they had never considered humans a real threat. Humans were just one of many species struggling to survive. That belief would cost them dearly. As the ships lifted into the sky, the Council watched through their vast observation networks. They saw Earth grow smaller and smaller, a pale blue dot slipping into the darkness. Some Council members whispered among themselves, debating what this departure meant. Surely, they thought, humans would struggle in the void. Space was harsh. Planets were harsh. Civilizations that had not mastered interstellar travel for thousands of years could not simply vanish into the stars and expect to thrive. But the whispers carried a subtle edge of fear, too. Some of the older members, the ones who had seen civilizations rise and fall, sensed something deeper. There was a precision to humanity that was unusual. Every ship left on time. Every system was prepared. Every human involved knew exactly what to do. It was not chaos. It was control. And in that control, there was power. The Council felt it in their bones. On Earth, life continued as humans worked quietly. Families did not abandon their homes in panic. Workers continued their tasks. Scientists monitored the final systems, and pilots boarded their crafts with a calm that could seem almost unnatural. Humanity was leaving, but they were not running. They were stepping into something greater, something they had fought silently for generations. To achieve. The first moments in space were strange and beautiful. From above, the planet looked fragile, its blue oceans and green continents glowing softly. The ships glided past the clouds, past the storms, past the limits of what anyone had imagined. Inside, humans did not speak much. They moved with precision, checking systems, monitoring energy levels, making sure every engine hummed perfectly. There was excitement, yes, but it was quiet. They knew the real test would not come until they were far from home, beyond the comfort of Earth's gravity and the safety of its atmosphere. As the fleet moved further, a sense of unity settled over the human crews. They were no longer bound to one planet. They were now bound to each other. Survival was no longer about individuals or nations. It was about species. And in that realization, a quiet strength emerged. Humans had always been adaptable. They had survived wars, natural disasters, plagues, and famine. Space would be no different. The Council's doubts grew as they watched. Some suggested sending Scouts, small fleets to follow the humans, to see where they were going. Others argued that such moves were unnecessary. They will fail, some said confidently. The void is harsh. They cannot survive beyond their world. But even as they spoke, a tension crept into the room. Something about the human fleet's departure did not feel like failure. It felt like preparation. In the silence of space, humans experienced a strange kind of peace. They were leaving the planet that had nurtured them for millennia, but they were not leaving it behind emotionally. Each ship carried not just people, but pieces of Earth itself, soil samples, seeds, water, even reminders of home. Humanity carried memory and culture as carefully as they carried technology. They were determined not just to survive, but to carry the essence of Earth into the unknown. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council's communications networks buzzed with messages. Scientists, observers, and spies from various civilizations tried to understand what humans were doing. Data came in slowly, but every signal suggested something unusual. The humans were not fleeing in fear. They were not scattering in panic. They were moving as one, coordinated and precise. Their technology was beyond anything previously recorded. It was not just advancement. It was evolution. Within the fleet, life continued with quiet efficiency. Humans worked in shifts, monitored every system, and maintained morale. They shared stories from Earth, sang songs, laughed quietly. There was a sense of wonder that no council, no alien observer could fully comprehend. Humans were explorers at heart. Their departure was not a flight. It was an adventure, a deliberate step into the unknown, armed with knowledge, courage, and the drive to succeed. As the fleet approached the edges of the solar system, the first real tests began. Asteroids, radiation fields, and strange cosmic storms tested the ship's capabilities. Humans faced these dangers with the calm precision that had become their hallmark. Engines adjusted automatically, shields flared at the right moment, and crews adapted without panic. Every challenge was met with preparation, every obstacle an opportunity to demonstrate their ingenuity. Back on Earth, those left behind watched the stars. Families, teachers, workers, and scientists knew that humanity had crossed a threshold. They had left the comfort of home, the known safety of their world, and stepped into the vast, dangerous universe. Yet there was hope, pride, and an unspoken certainty that they had made the right choice. Humans had always found a way, and now they were proving it once more. For the Galactic Council, fear had begun to replace doubt. They could see the humans moving through space like a silent wave, unstoppable, calculated, precise. They began to understand that this departure was not weakness, it was strength. And for the first time, many members of the Council felt an emotion they had long thought unnecessary: worry. The departure of humanity was not a dramatic explosion or a sudden catastrophe. It was quiet, steady, and deliberate. Yet in that quiet, the galaxy began to shift. Stars that had seemed distant now appeared as milestones, and planets that had seemed unreachable now glimmered as possibilities. Humans were gone from Earth, but they were not lost. They were on their way to something greater, and the universe was about to feel the consequences of leaving one of its most underestimated species to their own devices. In the end, the first part of humanity's journey was not marked by victory or defeat, but by the promise of potential. They left Earth not because they had to, but because they had chosen to. And somewhere in the corridors of the Galactic Council, the first seeds of fear had taken root. The council members did not yet know what awaited them, but they knew, deep down, that humanity's quiet departure had set events in motion that could not be stopped. Humans moved through space as they had always moved through life, with intelligence, courage, and an unshakable will. The galaxy might have believed them small and fragile, but humans had left Earth as masters of their destiny. and in that they had already begun to win. After humanity left Earth, the galaxy's most powerful rulers began to feel unease. A galactic council, made up of species that had controlled star systems for centuries, gathered in vast chambers that seemed to stretch into infinity. Each member had seen civilizations rise and fall, yet something about humans made them uneasy. The departure had been silent, precise, and deliberate, and that alone was enough to spark fear. At first, the council argued. Some believed that humans would fail quickly in the harsh emptiness of space. They had left their planet behind, yes, but survival in the void was no simple task. Ships could break, systems could fail, supplies could run out. They cannot last, said one counselor from a species known for its intellect. They will return broken, or they will vanish entirely. Others disagreed. Older, wiser members spoke quietly, their voices carrying the weight of centuries. You underestimate them, one said. Do you not see the precision of their departure? The way they left nothing to chance? Every ship, every crew, every system prepared in perfect coordination. They are not naive or desperate. They are ready. This caused the room to fall into an uneasy silence. The younger counselors looked at one another nervously. They had always assumed humans were clever, but nothing in the records suggested they could manage such a feat. The older members, however, had learned something that the young often forgot. The smallest species, the one you least expect, could change everything if it moved with purpose. Meanwhile, humans continued their journey in silence. Inside the massive fleet, life was orderly but not rigid. People moved with calm efficiency, checking engines, monitoring shields, and keeping supplies in perfect condition. There was no panic, no fear. The fleet was a living machine, but its people remained fully human. They ate, slept, shared stories, and maintained hope. For the first time in generations, humans were free from the conflicts of their home world, free to work together as one species toward a shared goal. The first signs of danger arrived in the form of the void itself. Space was not empty. Radiation fields, asteroid belts, and unpredictable gravitational waves challenged the fleet at every turn. Yet humans adapted without hesitation. Systems automatically adjusted to protect the ships, and crews responded with calm precision to each alert. Where another species might panic, humans analyzed, calculated, and acted. Every obstacle became an opportunity to demonstrate their ingenuity. News of these first small successes filtered back to the council through distant sensors and long-range transmissions. Every signal contradicted the assumptions they had made. Humans were not struggling, they were thriving. The council grew anxious, and whispers of concern turned into heated debates. How can one species be this prepared? One counselor demanded they should not survive the first 100 cycles in the void, yet here they are, intact and advancing. The older members simply nodded quietly, watching the younger counselors grow agitated. They remembered that history was full of examples of civilizations that had been underestimated. Pride often blinded the powerful, and cleverness often came from the unlikeliest places. Humanity was proving that lesson once more. As the fleet traveled deeper into the galaxy, humans encountered their first truly foreign signals, strange worlds, with unusual energy patterns, faint transmissions that hinted at intelligent life, and mysterious phenomena that no one fully understood. Humans approached with curiosity, but also caution. Each planet or system was studied carefully before making any move. Surveys were conducted, sensors analyzed, and every discovery was recorded. This methodical approach worried the council further. They had assumed that humans would act recklessly, that they would stumble and fail. Yet the humans were not reckless, they were deliberate. They moved forward with the patience of predators, yet their movements carried the confidence of those who knew they could adapt to anything. Inside the fleet, People worked in teams, sharing knowledge and skills. Engineers collaborated on systems, navigators plotted courses through treacherous space, and scientists experimented with energy fields, propulsion, and materials unknown to the galaxy. Every task, from the smallest adjustment to the largest operation, was executed with care. There was a quiet pride among them, a shared understanding that they were shaping their own destiny. The council tried to respond. They sent emissaries, scouts, and long-range observers, attempting to understand human movements. Each attempt was met with subtle but unmistakable superiority. Humans had anticipated such monitoring. Ships adjusted courses slightly, signals were masked, and communications appeared almost invisible to the council's sensors. It was as if the humans were already a step ahead, always observing, always preparing, and always adapting. The council's unease grew into fear. The members realized that humanity's departure had been far more than a migration. It was a test, a preparation, and a strategy all in one. Humans had left not because they were weak or desperate, but because they were ready to claim a place in the galaxy on their own terms. And that realization terrified the council more than any weapon ever could. Meanwhile, humans were discovering new ways to survive and thrive. They learned to harness energy from stars, developed new propulsion techniques, and found ways to recycle and conserve resources that seemed impossible. Every discovery strengthened the fleet, and every challenge they faced became a proof of their resilience. They were not just surviving, they were evolving, becoming something more than the species that had once lived on a single planet dot. As the fleet moved farther from Earth, a sense of unity deepened among humans. They no longer thought as nations, as individuals, or as isolated communities. They thought as a species. Decisions were made for the good of all. Conflicts that might have divided them on Earth were resolved quickly, without chaos. They learned to rely on one another, to trust instinct, and to respect the knowledge and expertise each person brought to the table dot in the council chambers. Worry turned into panic for some. They began to recognize that they had underestimated humans in ways that might not be recoverable. Plans to control, influence, or even observe the humans were failing. Every attempt to track them, to predict them, or to communicate with them was met with subtle resistance or clever misdirection. Humans were not just surviving, they were outmaneuvering. The older council members warned that this was only the beginning. Humans were still early in their journey, and yet they had already shown a level of skill, intelligence, and adaptability that rivaled the galaxy's oldest civilizations. The council could sense that humanity's departure was not a retreat, but a preparation for dominance. And the more the council tried to intervene, the clearer it became that humans had anticipated nearly every move. Inside the fleet, humans continued to explore, experiment, and improve. They were not invincible, but they were determined. Every challenge faced, from cosmic storms to system malfunctions, was met with calm efficiency. Their leaders encouraged collaboration and innovation, not fear. Every success was celebrated quietly, every failure analyzed and used as a lesson. Humanity's strength lay not only in technology, but in unity, resilience, and intelligence. The Council's panic grew when humans began sending signals of their own, small beacons of presence in distant systems. They were careful, not aggressive, but deliberate. The galaxy began to hear whispers of a new human fleet moving silently and efficiently through space, prepared to explore, survive, and perhaps claim territories once thought beyond reach. Fear replaced doubt in the Council. They could no longer ignore the fact that humans were extraordinary. They were precise, adaptable, and patient, moving with a long-term strategy that few could comprehend. Humans had left Earth not as refugees or wanderers, but as a species ready to redefine the rules of survival and power in the galaxy. As humans continued their journey, They maintained a balance between caution and curiosity. They learned from every encounter, adapted to every environment, and respected the mysteries of space without being afraid. They were explorers, scientists, engineers, and strategists all at once. The fleet moved as a single organism, each individual, contributing to the strength and intelligence of the whole. The Galactic Council, watching from afar, began to realize the full scope of what they had underestimated. Humans were not only surviving, they were thriving. Every step taken, every system traversed, and every challenge overcome proved their readiness and intelligence. The Council had assumed humans were fragile, but humanity had turned absence into an advantage, leaving their home as a species united, prepared, and quietly powerful. By the time the fleet reached the edges of known space, the Council understood that humanity's journey was not just a test of survival, it was a statement. Humans were claiming the right to exist, to grow, and to explore, all on their own terms. The galaxy had witnessed a species depart quietly, with no fanfare. But what came next would change everything. In the silence of deep space, humans moved forward with calm confidence. They were no longer bound by fear or uncertainty. Each person knew their role, and each ship carried not only technology, but the legacy of a planet and a species that had refused to be underestimated. Humans were learning, adapting, and preparing for the challenges ahead, and the galaxy, including the Council, had begun to understand that this was only the beginning. Humans had left their home planet behind, but they carried Earth with them in every thought, every decision, and every system they built. Life in the fleet was different from life on a planet. There was no familiar sky, no weather, no oceans. The stars stretched endlessly in every direction, a vast sea of light and darkness that was both beautiful and dangerous. Yet humans adapted quickly. They had always thrived in unexpected conditions, finding solutions where others might see only problems. Inside the fleet, people moved with purpose. There was work to do, and every task mattered. Engineers monitored the engines, adjusting energy flows and repairing small malfunctions before they could become serious problems. Scientists studied cosmic phenomena, noting every anomaly and developing ways to use the energy and materials they found in space. Navigators charted courses through untested regions, avoiding hazards like asteroid belts, radiation storms, and unstable gravitational fields. The fleet moved like a single organism, each person aware of the part they played and how it contributed to the survival of everyone aboard. Despite the constant work, there was also life beyond duty. Humans found ways to connect, to share stories of Earth, to laugh and sing quietly in the halls of their ships. They celebrated small victories, successful repairs, discoveries of new resources, or the completion of a particularly difficult maneuver through dangerous space. These moments reminded them that they were not just explorers or engineers. They were people carrying with them the memories and cultures of their home world. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council watched from afar, unable to intervene directly. They had assumed humans would struggle quickly in the emptiness of space. But as reports came in, it became clear that humans were not just surviving, they were learning and growing stronger. The fleet had systems that repaired themselves, engines that optimized automatically, and shields that adapted to energy fluctuations faster than any observer could predict. Humans had turned preparation into a kind of art, and every observation only deepened the Council's worry. The Council debated what to do. Some argued for sending scouts to confront the humans to test their capabilities. Others suggested waiting and watching, hoping that space itself would slow them down. They are clever, yes, but they cannot last forever, one counselor insisted. The void is harsh, the stars unforgiving. Time will be our ally. Yet even as they spoke, a subtle Fear spread through the chambers. They could see the humans moving forward with calm confidence, as if they had already anticipated every danger the universe could throw at them. Humans did not act recklessly. Every new star system they approached was studied carefully before any ship entered orbit. Sensors scanned planets for resources, habitability, and energy anomalies. Scouts traveled ahead, small, agile ships that could slip through dangerous areas and report back safely. Humans observed, recorded, and adapted. Nothing was left to chance. In some ways, this careful approach confused the Council even more. They had expected humans to be reckless, to act out of desperation or fear. Instead, they moved like a species that understood risk and opportunity in equal measure. Each success reinforced their confidence. Each small achievement strengthened the fleet and the resolve of the people aboard. Humans were proving that absence from their home planet did not mean weakness. It meant focus. Life aboard the fleet was not easy. Supplies were limited, and space could be unforgiving. Systems could fail. Unexpected anomalies could threaten entire ships, and illness or injury had to be treated in confined spaces with limited resources. Yet humans met these challenges with calm intelligence. Engineers developed solutions that no one else could imagine, using materials available in space, and crews adapted quickly to changing circumstances. Every obstacle became a lesson, every challenge a chance to grow stronger. As the fleet moved deeper into space, humans began to encounter phenomena that no one on Earth had fully understood. Strange energy fields, gravitational anomalies, and cosmic storms tested their technology and ingenuity. Some of these events would have destroyed unprepared fleets, but humans approached each with careful observation first, then decisive action. They experimented with energy flows, propulsion systems, and shields, finding new ways to survive and even benefit from dangers that other species might avoid. The Council's anxiety grew. Every transmission they intercepted painted the same picture. Humans were adapting, evolving, and becoming more capable. The fleet's precision, coordination, and problem-solving were beyond what the Council had expected. The longer humans moved through space without failure, the more the Council realized that they had underestimated them. They had assumed absence meant vulnerability, but humans had turned absence into strength. Inside the fleet, human culture and cooperation became as important as technology. People shared stories, taught one another skills, and celebrated achievements, both big and small. Morale was high because humans understood that survival was not just about machinery or strategy, it was about people. Their unity made them stronger, and their shared sense of purpose kept everyone focused on the long-term goal: exploration, survival, and the eventual expansion of humanity's presence in the galaxy. As the fleet passed beyond familiar territories, humans began to leave markers in space beacons that communicated their presence to each other, recorded observations, and mapped resources. These markers were carefully designed to avoid unnecessary attention from potential threats. They were clever, strategic, and silent, ensuring that humans could expand their knowledge without exposing themselves to danger. The Galactic Council struggled to comprehend these actions. They had never faced a species that combined intelligence, foresight, and unity in this way. Most civilizations, they observed, became divided under pressure, making mistakes that humans would never make. Humans, however, were disciplined yet flexible, calculating yet courageous. They learned quickly, adapted even faster, and remained coordinated across hundreds of ships. There were moments of quiet tension aboard the fleet, some anomalous preparation, but humans met these with ingenuity, collaboration, and determination. Teams worked together to find solutions, sharing knowledge and skills across ships and departments. Every difficulty faced together made them stronger. Every problem solved reinforced their confidence. The fleet was not just surviving, it was growing into something new, a self-sustaining entity, powered by the collective skill and intelligence of its people. The council began to notice a pattern. Humans did not simply react to challenges. They anticipated them. Every movement, every decision, every adjustment seemed calculated to minimize risk and maximize opportunity. Humans were not just surviving, they were mastering their environment, and doing so quietly, without fanfare or unnecessary aggression. This silent efficiency made the council uneasy. They had always assumed that superiority lay in overwhelming force or control. Yet here was a species proving that patience, intelligence, and unity could be just as powerful. In the fleet, humans began to discover resources that were previously thought unusable. They learned to extract energy from stars, recycle materials in ways no one else had considered, and adapt technologies on the fly. The fleet became increasingly self-sufficient, able to repair and improve itself without outside help. Each discovery strengthened not just the fleet's capabilities, but the confidence of the people aboard. Humanity was learning to live and thrive in the harshest conditions imaginable. Communication across the fleet was seamless. Humans developed ways to share information instantly, coordinate movements, and solve problems collectively. Every person had a role, every contribution mattered, and the sense of shared purpose kept morale high. Humans understood that survival was not about individual achievement. It was about cooperation, trust, and the shared will to endure and succeed. By the time the fleet reached uncharted territories, the council's fear had grown into respect, tinged with dread. Humans had proven themselves beyond expectation. They had left Earth, survived the void, adapted to new dangers, and continued to thrive. The council realized that humans were no longer just a species. They were becoming a force of inevitability. Inside the fleet, humans continued their journey with the same calm determination. They did not seek conflict, but they were prepared for it. They did not need to prove themselves to the galaxy, but every achievement quietly demonstrated their capabilities. The fleet moved as a single intelligent entity, constantly learning, adapting, and evolving. The departure from Earth had set this all in motion. Humans had chosen to leave their home, not in desperation, but with purpose. They had left behind the safety and familiarity of a planet, but they carried the lessons, knowledge, and culture of humanity with them. Every step in space reinforced their unity. Every challenge strengthened their resolve, and every success proved that they could achieve more than anyone had thought possible. The Galactic Council could no longer dismiss humanity as a minor species. They were growing stronger with every light year, preparing themselves quietly for a future that no one in the galaxy had predicted. Humans were no longer just survivors. They were pioneers, explorers, and strategists. They were learning, adapting, and quietly building power in ways that would soon be impossible to ignore. As the human fleet continued its journey through the stars, they began to encounter other civilizations. These were species that had long believed themselves untouchable, powerful, and dominant in their regions of space. Many of them had never faced a threat like humanity before. The humans did not arrive with loud announcements or aggressive postures. Instead, they moved quietly, analyzing, observing, and preparing before making any contact. It was this combination of caution and confidence that unsettled the galaxy. The first encounters were subtle. Humans sent small scouts to study planets and their inhabitants from a distance. They watched cities, energy systems, and defenses without revealing themselves fully. Nothing was left to chance. Every observation was carefully recorded, every anomaly analyzed. The humans were not just exploring, they were learning about the balance of power in the galaxy, quietly calculating where they could act and where patience was required. For the civilizations that spotted them, these first interactions were confusing. There were signals, brief flashes of activity, or movements that could not be explained. Some of the older species assumed these were natural phenomena, while others feared it might be a new competitor entering their territory. Yet no one truly understood what they were witnessing. Humans were deliberate and disciplined, unlike any species the galaxy had encountered before. Inside the human fleet, life continued with focus and routine. People worked in teams, managing the fleet's systems, monitoring energy resources, and maintaining the ships. Every challenge, whether a small mechanical failure or an unexpected cosmic anomaly, was met with calm precision. Humans had become experts at adapting to the unknown. They treated space as both a laboratory and a battlefield, using every opportunity to improve themselves and their fleet. The first direct contact with another civilization came quietly. Humans detected ships approaching from a nearby system. The alien vessels were large, armed, and confident. They had never seen a fleet like this before. The humans, however, did not panic. They monitored the approaching ships, studied their capabilities, and positioned themselves in the safest formation. They were ready, but they also knew that confrontation was not necessary unless provoked. The aliens sent messages, demanding to know who was entering their space and why. The humans responded carefully, using communications that were neutral, polite, and strategic. They did not threaten, but they also did not reveal unnecessary information. Every word was chosen to observe the reaction, to test the intelligence of the alien species, and to maintain control. The Council on Earth, had they been able to watch, would have seen a masterclass in diplomacy and strategy. The aliens, however, misinterpreted this restraint. They assumed the humans were weak or inexperienced. They had never faced a species that moved with such confidence, yet said so little. To the aliens, the silence of the humans was unnerving. They did not understand that these were not careless travelers. They were prepared, patient, and observant. Inside the human fleet, the crew studied the alien ships. They learned their patterns, weaknesses, and strengths. They calculated every possible scenario, considering both diplomacy and, if necessary, defense. Humans were not aggressive by nature, but they were ready for every possibility. Their training, their technology, and their unity gave them an advantage that the aliens could not anticipate. As the encounter continued, humans discovered that some civilizations were more advanced than they had expected. These species had weapons, shields, and defenses that were powerful, but humans had developed strategies to understand and adapt. They did not rush into battle. Instead, they studied, experimented, and learned. Every encounter, whether peaceful or tense, became an opportunity for growth. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council observed these developments with mounting anxiety. Their predictions had failed. They had assumed that humans would struggle and perhaps vanish into the void. Instead, humans were engaging with other civilizations intelligently and effectively. Every contact revealed more about the humans' capabilities, and the Council began to realize that they had underestimated not only human technology, but human intelligence, patience, and adaptability. Inside the fleet, humans continued to thrive. The people aboard the ships developed routines that kept morale high while ensuring maximum efficiency. They trained, they studied, and they collaborated. Every individual contributed to the fleet's overall strength. Humans understood that survival in space was not only about technology, it was about people, their unity, and their ability to work together under pressure. The first skirmishes with alien forces occurred subtly. Some civilizations attempted to test the humans, sending small attack squads or probing defenses. The humans responded precisely. They defended themselves without unnecessary aggression, using strategy and intelligence rather than brute force. Every move was calculated to protect the fleet and its people while minimizing unnecessary conflict. The aliens quickly realized that humans were not ordinary opponents. They were organized, skilled, and always several steps ahead, every successful. Encounter strengthened humanity's confidence. The fleet learned from each engagement, improved their systems, and refined strategies. Humans were not invincible, but they had the rare ability to turn challenges into lessons and obstacles into advantages. Every difficulty made them stronger, more capable, and more united. The aliens began to spread stories of the humans. They described a species that did not fear the void, did not panic in the face of danger, and could adapt almost any challenge. The rumors reached the Galactic Council, creating concern and tension among the members. They realized that humanity was moving beyond survival. They were becoming a force that could influence the balance of power across the galaxy. Within the fleet, humans did not dwell on fear or arrogance. They focused on what they could control: their skills, their technology, and their unity. Every decision was deliberate. Every action was designed to preserve the fleet and its people while preparing for the future. Humans had learned that success came not from domination alone, but from understanding, patience, and the ability to adapt. As humans traveled further, they began to map uncharted systems, discovering resources, habitable planets, and energy fields that could sustain them for centuries. They were learning to expand without overextending, to explore without risking unnecessary conflict, and to prepare for any challenges that might arise. Each discovery was carefully logged, analyzed, and shared across the fleet. The collective knowledge of humanity grew with every light year traveled. The Galactic Council struggled to respond. Every plan they considered failed to account for human adaptability. Their spies and observers could see what humans were doing, but they could not predict what humans would do next. The Council had relied on assumptions, but humans were defying every expectation. They were a species that thought ahead, prepared thoroughly, and acted intelligently. Inside the fleet, humans faced new challenges every day. Cosmic storms, unknown energy fields, and uncharted planets tested their skills. Each time, humans responded with calm efficiency, studying the environment, experimenting with solutions, and implementing changes quickly. They learned faster than anyone expected, adapted more effectively than most species could, and kept morale high even in the most difficult situations. The first alien civilizations that humans encountered slowly began to change their approach. They realized that humans were not just another species. They were clever, patient, and capable of extraordinary coordination. Diplomacy became more cautious, and aggressive moves were reduced. Humans had shown that they could protect themselves without provoking unnecessary conflict, and that was a new experience for civilizations used to power through force alone. The fleet moved forward, quietly but steadily reshaping the galaxy's perception of humans. They were explorers, but also learners. They were peaceful when possible, but prepared for confrontation when necessary. They were united, adaptable, and intelligent, showing that the strength of a species lay not just in technology or numbers, but in the ability to think, cooperate, and adapt. By the end of this part of the journey, humans had made their presence known without seeking war. Other civilizations were aware of their skills, intelligence, and resilience. The Galactic Council could see the pattern now. Humanity's departure from Earth was not just an escape. It was a preparation for influence and eventual dominance. The Council realized that humans had become a species that could no longer be underestimated, and that realization sent ripples of fear and awe across the galaxy. Humans, meanwhile, continued forward with calm confidence. They were learning, adapting, and preparing for what lay ahead. The encounters had taught them valuable lessons about diplomacy, strategy, and the balance of power. Each challenge strengthened their fleet and their people. They were no longer just a species that had left the planet. They were a force quietly shaping their destiny in the stars. And as the fleet moved into ever more distant systems, Humans were not only surviving, they were thriving. They were a species prepared for the universe, united in purpose, and ready to face whatever challenges awaited. The galaxy was beginning to notice, and the Council had no choice but to acknowledge what had always been true. Humans were extraordinary, and their presence would change E. As humans moved deeper into the galaxy, the Galactic Council's unease turned into something stronger: fear. They had watched humanity depart from Earth and assumed that time and space would weaken them. They had expected mistakes, failures, and struggles. Instead, every observation revealed humans adapting, learning, and thriving. The fleet was growing more capable, more coordinated, and more confident with each passing cycle. For the Council, the realization was terrifying. Humans had not only survived the dangers of space, they had turned them into opportunities. They had learned to harness energy from stars, navigate through dangerous asteroid fields, and even predict cosmic events that would have destroyed lesser fleets. Every failure in the past had been studied, understood, and turned into an advantage. Humans were no longer a species to underestimate, they were a force to fear. Within the fleet, humans continued their quiet work. Engineers repaired and upgraded ships in real time, using resources harvested from nearby planets and asteroids. Scientists experimented with energy systems, propulsion, and defensive technologies. Navigators charted courses that avoided hazards, but also opened doors to uncharted resources. The fleet had become a living, intelligent system, guided by people who were disciplined, cooperative, and focused on a shared goal. Humans were not invincible, but they were remarkably resilient. A solar flare that would have disabled many ships was turned into an opportunity to improve shield technology. A collision with an asteroid in a remote system became a chance to test new navigation algorithms and improve coordination across the fleet. Every challenge was met with calm analysis, strategic planning, and precise execution. The humans' ability to adapt in real time made them unpredictable and dangerous from the perspective of other civilizations. The Council debated what could be done, but no plan seemed to work. They had always relied on assumptions, on predicting behavior based on past patterns. But humans did not fit any known pattern. They acted intelligently, cooperatively, and unpredictably. Every time the Council thought they understood what humans might do next, humans had already moved in a different direction. They were constantly one step ahead, and that realization made the Council anxious and frustrated. The first real test of humanity's power came when a cluster of alien civilizations attempted to block the fleet's path. They believed that overwhelming numbers and superior firepower would stop the humans. The aliens were confident. They had never faced a species that moved with such precision, intelligence, and unity. They assumed that humans would panic, scatter, or fail under pressure. But the humans were ready. They did not rush or panic. Instead, they assessed the situation carefully. Scout ships analyzed the alien formations, studied their weapons, and mapped their weaknesses. Engineers adjusted defensive systems and optimized shields, while commanders coordinated maneuvers with precision. Humans approached the confrontation like a chess game, anticipating moves and planning counters. When the moment of engagement arrived, humans acted decisively but strategically. They did not attack blindly. They struck at weaknesses in the alien formations, avoiding unnecessary conflict while neutralizing threats efficiently. The aliens were stunned. They had expected chaos or fear, but humans were calm, organized, and methodical. Every move was calculated. Every action reinforced their advantage. The encounter ended quickly, with minimal damage to the human fleet and a clear demonstration of their skill. The aliens were forced to retreat, stunned and humiliated by a species they had assumed was weaker and inexperienced. Rumors of this event spread quickly, and across the galaxy, civilizations began to take notice. Humans were no longer just a distant curiosity. They were a growing power. Inside the fleet, the humans did not celebrate with arrogance. They remained focused, understanding that survival and success required constant vigilance. They repaired minor damages, studied every aspect of the encounter, and improved strategies for the future. The fleet had grown stronger, not because of conquest, but because of careful planning, learning, and cooperation. Every victory was a lesson, every challenge a step forward. The Council realized that direct confrontation would be increasingly dangerous. Humans had proven that they could defend themselves intelligently, even against overwhelming odds. Any aggressive move could result in disaster. The Council began to understand that humanity's departure from Earth was not a retreat. It had been a strategic preparation for power. Every step the humans had taken was calculated, deliberate, and precise. Meanwhile, humans continued to expand quietly. They discovered new star systems rich in resources, planets capable of supporting life, and energy sources that had never been harnessed before. They approached each discovery with caution, ensuring that every new system could be integrated safely into their fleet's operations. Humans did not need to conquer for the sake of conquest. They understood the value of preparation and patience. Life aboard the fleet remained disciplined but human. People worked, studied, and trained, but they also found moments of joy. They shared stories, celebrated discoveries, and supported one another. The fleet was more than a collection of ships. It was a community, a society traveling through the stars as one organism. The strength of humanity lay not only in their technology, but in their cooperation, trust, and resilience. The Council, observing from afar, grew increasingly anxious. They could see that humans were learning faster than expected, adapting in real time, and preparing for the long-term future. The fleet was not merely surviving. It was becoming stronger, more capable, and more coordinated. Humans had transformed from a fledgling species into a calculated, adaptive power that could influence the balance of the galaxy. At the same time, humans were beginning to understand the civilizations they encountered. They studied cultures, observed behaviors, and identified patterns. Every interaction, whether peaceful or hostile, was analyzed and incorporated into their strategies. Humans were learning not only to survive, but to navigate the complex social and political dynamics of the galaxy. This intelligence made them even more formidable. The first signs of real influence appeared when humans began establishing outposts in neutral systems. They were careful to avoid unnecessary conflict, but the presence of human technology and infrastructure quickly shifted the balance of power. Other species noticed the efficiency, adaptability, and intelligence of humans. Even the Council could not deny that humanity was no longer a species to ignore. Humans had learned a vital lesson from every encounter and challenge. Unity and intelligence could outweigh numbers and brute force. They approached the galaxy with confidence, but not arrogance. Every move was deliberate, every decision measured. They understood that survival depended on preparation, adaptability, and cooperation, and they had mastered all three. As the fleet continued, the Council's fear became almost palpable. They realized that they were witnessing the rise of a species that had turned absence into power, quiet planning into influence, and adaptability into dominance. Humans had not sought conflict, yet they had demonstrated the ability to overcome challenges that would have destroyed other species. The Council could only watch, powerless to interfere. Inside the fleet, humans remained focused on their journey. They repaired, learned, adapted, and strengthened their fleet and their people. Each encounter provided new knowledge. Each challenge offered an opportunity to improve. Humans were not just surviving, they were evolving, becoming something greater than any species the galaxy had ever seen. The alien civilizations that had first tried to block the fleet began to change their approach. They realized that humans were not reckless, not predictable, and not easily intimidated. Diplomacy replaced. Aggression and caution replaced overconfidence. Humans had quietly rewritten the rules of engagement, demonstrating that intelligence, preparation, and unity could defeat force alone. By the end of this stage of the journey, humans had transformed the galaxy's perception of them. They were no longer just a species that had left a planet. They were a force to be reckoned with. The Council understood that humanity's departure had been the first step in a long-term strategy, and the realization filled them with unease. Humans, however, remained calm and focused. They continued to explore, adapt, and learn. Every system mapped, every encounter navigated, and every challenge overcome strengthened them further. They were a species prepared for the universe, united in purpose, and quietly shaping the future. The galaxy was beginning to recognize that humanity was no longer an ordinary species, and the Council could do nothing but watch as a new power quietly rose among the stars. The journey had proven one undeniable truth. Humans had left Earth not because they were weak, but because they were ready. They had prepared, adapted, and mastered their skills, and now they were beginning to influence the galaxy in ways no one could have anticipated. Every move, every calculation, and every decision showed a species growing stronger, smarter, and more capable. Humans were no longer just survivors. They were strategists, explorers, and pioneers. They had transformed absence into opportunity, intelligence into power, and unity into strength. The Galactic Council understood that they could not stop them. Humanity's rise was inevitable, and the galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet had traveled farther than anyone had thought possible. Every light year crossed was a testament to preparation, intelligence, and unity. For centuries, civilizations had assumed humans were small, weak, and unpredictable. Yet, now after years in the void, humanity had proven itself in ways the galaxy could barely comprehend. The Galactic Council had watched every move with growing alarm. They had underestimated humans from the start, and now their power and precision left the Council with a quiet, unsettling fear. Humans had learned more than just survival. They had learned control over their ships, their technology, and their environment. They had learned to harness the stars themselves, to turn cosmic anomalies into advantages, and to convert challenges into lessons. Every new star system offered opportunities, resources, energy, and knowledge. Nothing was wasted. Humans approached every discovery with care, ensuring that their fleet could continue to thrive while simultaneously preparing for the unknown threats that might come. Life aboard the fleet was a study in balance. Work was constant, yet humanity had not lost the small joys of life. People ate together, shared stories of Earth, laughed at memories from the planet they had left behind, and supported one another during long cycles of travel. Training and drills were rigorous, but they were also tempered with community. Humans understood that the strength of the fleet was not only in its technology, but in its people, their cooperation, resilience, and shared purpose. The first real shock to the galaxy came when humans encountered a powerful alien armada in a sector that had long been considered dominated by older civilizations. The aliens were confident, assuming that numbers and firepower alone could deter the human fleet. They believed humans were explorers who could be negotiated with or intimidated. They were wrong. Humans did not rush into combat, nor did they act recklessly. They observed, studied, and analyzed the enemy's fleet carefully. Engineers adjusted shields and weapons in real time. Strategists coordinated movements across hundreds of ships. Humans anticipated every maneuver, every possible attack. They moved as a single, intelligent entity, a fleet united not just by technology, but by discipline, coordination, and shared purpose. When the confrontation began, the humans struck with precision rather than brute force. They disabled key systems, avoided unnecessary casualties, and outmaneuvered the alien armada at every turn. The aliens, accustomed to overwhelming dominance, were stunned. They had assumed humans would panic, scatter, or fall into predictable patterns. Instead, humans demonstrated a combination of courage, intelligence, and adaptability that no one had expected. The victory was decisive but quiet. Humans did not celebrate with arrogance or cruelty. They repaired minor damages, logged every lesson, learned, and moved forward. The message to the galaxy was clear. Humans were not a species to be underestimated. They could survive, adapt, and overcome challenges far beyond what any civilization had imagined. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council's fear reached its peak. They realized that humans were no longer a fledgling species. They were a calculated, intelligent power capable of reshaping the balance of influence across the galaxy. Every attempt to predict human behavior had failed. Every strategy assumed by the Council had been anticipated and countered by humans. The departure from Earth had not been an escape. It had been a preparation, a calculated step toward influence and mastery. As humans continued, they began to establish controlled outposts in strategic systems. These were not conquests in the traditional sense. They were careful, calculated expansions designed to ensure survival, communication, and coordination across vast distances. Each outpost was a testament to ingenuity, using local resources, energy harvesting, and advanced technology. They served as points of observation, learning, and preparation for future challenges. The humans' influence began to ripple outward. Civilizations that once ignored or underestimated them were now cautious, aware that humanity's intelligence, preparation, and unity made them unpredictable. Attempts to intimidate humans were met with calm strategy rather than aggression. Attempts to negotiate were met with careful observation and silence. Across the galaxy, stories began to circulate. Humans were not just surviving, they were thriving in ways no one had imagined. Within the fleet, humans remained grounded. They celebrated achievements without arrogance, supported each other during hardships, and maintained discipline and focus. Their unity and shared purpose were their greatest strengths. Every challenge encountered became a lesson. Every obstacle turned into an advantage. They had learned from every cosmic storm, every mechanical failure, and every alien encounter. Humanity had transformed absence into opportunity, intelligence into influence, and adaptability into power. The Galactic Council could do little but watch. Their spies and observers could track human movements, but predicting them was impossible. Humans acted intelligently, cooperatively, and unpredictably. Every encounter, every maneuver, every decision demonstrated their capability and strategic brilliance. The Council's assumptions had failed repeatedly. Humans were no longer a species to underestimate. They were a force quietly asserting their presence across the galaxy. The humans' journey also revealed something deeper. Their ability to learn and adapt was unparalleled. Every challenge in space, from cosmic anomalies to alien defenses, became a classroom. Every success strengthened the fleet. Every failure taught a lesson. Humans could not simply be stopped by firepower, intimidation, or deception. They were evolving, learning faster than anyone could anticipate, and preparing for every eventuality. This combination of intelligence, preparation, and adaptability made humanity unstoppable in ways the Council could not grasp. They had left Earth not because they were vulnerable, but because they were ready. They had left with knowledge, unity, and purpose, and they were now proving that absence could become strength. As humans continued to move deeper into uncharted space, they encountered civilizations that had long dominated entire sectors. Many attempted to intimidate or confront the humans, believing that force could halt them. Every time, humans responded with intelligence, caution, and strategy. They studied, adapted, and acted decisively, neutralizing threats without unnecessary aggression. Their actions spread a quiet, growing reputation across the galaxy. Humans had also begun to develop innovations that older civilizations had never imagined. They discovered ways to harness energy more efficiently, repurpose resources in space, and optimize ship systems in ways that made the fleet increasingly self-sufficient. Every advancement strengthened not only the fleet, but also the people aboard. They were growing stronger, smarter, and more capable with each passing cycle. The Galactic Council had no choice but to accept the reality. Humanity was no longer a minor species struggling to survive. They were a calculated, intelligent power reshaping the galaxy. Their departure from Earth had been the first step in a strategy that combined survival, preparation, and influence. And the Council could only watch as humans quietly but steadily asserted their presence. Inside the fleet, humans remained focused. Their goals were not conquest or domination. They were survival, exploration, and preparation for the challenges ahead. Every action was deliberate. Every step was calculated. Yet even as they moved forward, humans retained the qualities that had always defined them: curiosity, ingenuity, unity, and resilience. They were explorers and strategists, engineers and thinkers, bound together by a shared purpose. By the time the fleet had reached the outer edges of the galaxy, their influence was undeniable. Civilizations that once considered themselves dominant now treated humans with caution and respect. The Galactic Council understood that the humans' departure from Earth had been more than a migration. It had been the rise of a species capable of changing the rules of the galaxy. Humans did not revel in fear or intimidation. They remained focused on their mission: survival, knowledge, and the preparation for the future. They had learned that intelligence and unity could overcome numbers, technology, and even arrogance. Every encounter reinforced this lesson. Every challenge became a building block for the future. Humanity had turned absence into influence, strategy into power, and adaptability into dominance. The final moments of the journey, for now, were not about battle or conquest. They were about presence. Humans had reached a point where their fleet could operate independently, explore new systems, and interact with alien civilizations from a position of strength. Their unity, discipline, and intelligence made them unstoppable in ways the Council could not comprehend. And so, humanity had completed a journey that began with quiet departure from their home world. They had left Earth with purpose, intelligence, and preparation, and they had transformed into a species capable of shaping the galaxy. They were no longer small, underestimated, or fragile. They were explorers, thinkers, strategists, and pioneers, humans. In the purest sense of the word, united by resilience and vision, the Galactic Council could do nothing but acknowledge the truth. Humans were no longer just inhabitants of one planet. They were a force moving across the stars, silently, deliberately, and with purpose. Their journey had shown that absence was not weakness, that preparation could become power, and that unity could overcome any challenge. Humanity